It's mid-November, and fall is in the air. The fields and forests of the upper Midwest have come alive. And for North American hunters Bill Miller and protege Luke Hartle, another long year of dreaming and waiting has finally come to an end.
There's a buck on the ridge.
That can only mean one thing: giant whitetails.
Another young buck. Was he about 125?
I wasn't necessarily looking for an 8-pointer or a 10-pointer or a 12-pointer or anything like that. I was looking for hopefully something 4 years old or older, or scoring roughly 140.
Man, is he wide. I'd be lying to you if I said he didn't get me shaking a bit. Oh, he's not a shooter. He's about maybe 130. Looks to be a 3-year-old deer, but he's just not what we're looking for.
But Luke knows his best option right now is to keep sitting and watching.
Now, normally, I'm not a big fan of sitting up in a tree stand. I'm always a little bit worried about the safety. But I know that these stands are as solid as they come.
Right there on the edge. Right next to us down the line fence, 40 yards.
So it's the second to last day of the hunt. We were watching deer all afternoon, daylight's fading, and out walks a really good buck.
I can't tell quite how big he is.
And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at him, and when we first saw him, he was at about 150 yards, and I just could not decide what to do. We still had one day left, but at the same time, the hunt was waning down, so we sat there and watched him. And he came closer, and he came closer, and I didn't know what to do. And I remembered something that someone had told me a long time ago, and that if you really have to think hard about shooting a deer, then don't do it. And that's ultimately what I ended up doing. I knew I had one day left, and if I had to think that hard about shooting a deer, then I wanted to make sure I didn't screw up. So we let daylight fade away, and that was it. He was gone. And all I could hope was that he would show up the next night. The last day of the hunt, I probably wasn't going to let him get by with being so lucky.
With the rut in full swing and bucks littering the area, Bill and Luke aren't about to let a little rain keep them from their objective.
There's about an hour left, and out comes a doe. And as was the case during the previous 3 days, there was a buck behind her. And I got so busy watching these two, I forgot to look back. And sure enough, a few minutes later, here comes another buck. Looked at him and I looked at him, and it did not take me very long at all to figure out it was the same buck that we had seen the night before at 40 yards. And I told myself last night, and it still held true, if he came back, I was going to take a shot at him if he gave me an opportunity. So I put down the binoculars and I grabbed the rifle. As soon as I established that I was going to shoot this deer, my heart was pounding. I pulled up on him, and I literally had to take a second or two to gather myself because the crosshairs were dancing from the tip of his tail to the tip of his nose, much less right in the boiler room where I wanted it. The deer was standing there, the shot was there, I just needed to take a few seconds to gather myself before I was ready. Thankfully, it didn't take me too long to get ready because the buck stood there, I got the crosshairs where I wanted them, and I squeezed off a shot.
That boy was looking for love in all the wrong places.
I knew he was hit hard, I knew he wasn't going to go far, but nonetheless, we gave him a few minutes just to be sure.
That's the same buck we saw last night, and I was up half the night regretting that decision to let him walk. I want to get off his blood trail here.
Then sure enough, we got on the blood trail immediately, followed him in a little ways in the woods, and there he was.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I can't tell you how happy I am to be holding this guy.
I walked up to the deer, and just like that, the hunt came full circle. All the waiting, all the anticipation, all the hours sitting in that blind, it was all worthwhile just like that.
He was running 2 smaller bucks around and we were also chasing a doe, and he gave a look at that doe, decided it wasn't what he wanted, and he was about to meander back in the woods and do his thing back in here somewhere. But he got to the edge of the wood line, 150 yards, let him have it, and he didn't go but 60 yards, I suppose. Bleeding hard the whole way.
The last few hours of the final day of the hunt, it made everything worthwhile. All the waiting was worthwhile. I knew after passing up some of those maybe bucks that it was definitely a good decision.